Well, finally, hello, and happy Friday evening to you. I'm sorry we're a little bit late getting on. Having a little difficulty working with our technology here, but I think we have got it. We've got it together. I want to say happy Friday and welcome all of you who who are faithful to connect with me whenever and wherever I am doing videos from. So tonight I just wanted to, this morning was a brief video because it's actually a travel day, and we're excited. We're working to just do what I feel like God has challenged me to do. And I know God has given not only me instructions about the purpose and the plans that He has for my life, but He's also giving you instructions about the purposes and the plans He has for your life. So tonight I wanted to tap in, and like this morning session, I briefly, as you guys come on, go ahead and share the video. I want to say thank you guys so much for being with me. Come on. But I wanted to say this morning we touched briefly about one of the significant things about purpose and calling is the importance of keeping our focus and just zeroing in on God. Because whenever you have difficulties, like I tell you, I've had more than my share of challenges over these past few years, but compared to what other people go through, I see mine as small stuff. It's small stuff because it's all mental. It's all mental. That's why the class that I'm teaching, renewing the 6 faculties of your mind, starting October 1st, is so vital. So if you haven't signed up for that, renewing the 6 faculties of your mind, it's really vital because most of the stuff that we contend with, it's not physical. It's a lot of times the enemy just plays mind games. And if you understand what the games are that the enemy is trying to use to take you out, you can realize that it usually, in most instances, it just takes a tweak in our thinking for us to overcome what the enemy is working, or at least get past the present circumstance or the present condition. And you know, one of the best examples of that reality in scriptures is, remember in the Bible when the young man took he went to his dad and says, I want my inheritance now. I don't want to wait. Give me my money. I'm going to take it. And he took his inheritance and he went to a foreign land and he spent all of his inheritance until he found himself working in a pig pen, eating the scraps of the pig. And the passage says, and the young man came to himself. In fact, nothing changed except what he was thinking. Nothing changed about his life, about his mindset, about nothing altered except his frame of reference, except his mind. And once he changed his thinking, everything else changed. He was able to go back and renew a relationship, reconnect with his father, and he found out his dad wasn't angry or upset with him. His dad was very welcoming, and he brought him back. So what we're going to be talking about, some of the things that we're going to be talking about in that class, it's an online class. It's going to be 6 weeks, Monday nights. It is renewing the 6 faculties of your mind. When the Bible says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, what is he talking about, and how no one explains in that passage that your mind actually has 6 different faculties. So a part of what we're going to talk about is breaking these faculties up, looking at each one individually, and how do we renew that component of our mind? What are some strategies? What are some things that I can do? You guys know I'm all about, we're not just about talking to stuff. I want stuff that I can do. If I can't do something with it, if I can't use it, if I can't implement it, if I can't activate it, it's really not going to be much use for me to have it, okay? So I want to say thank you guys for logging on. Well, tonight what we're going to be talking about is actually something that I believe many people in the church have been missing. I was watching a video about, it was actually advertising a church conference, and they were talking about the speakers, and they were talking about how awesome it was going to be, and I think that's great. I think that's great. I think it's wonderful when churches have these huge conferences and and people come and 99.9% of the people that are in the conferences are already born again, and that's fine if that's what if that's what God tells you to do. But when I look at my assignment, I realize that my assignment is not with the people who are already in the kingdom. That if I'm going to be an instrument that the King of Kings uses to transform culture, I'm going to have to address the fact that my audience is probably not going to be a whole lot of people who already go to church. And that's fine. That's fine. But for those who do tap in and who do want to connect with the message that God gives me, that I'm willing and I'm happy to share. And so tonight what I wanted to talk about is a concept that I introduced several years ago called the service of ministry. Now, those of you who know me, you know for years I was a customer service trainer. I started out in customer service. I love customer service. In fact, one of the programs that I created years ago is a program that we're bringing back. And as I was preparing, or actually meditating on an event that I'll be doing next Thursday, the 27th of September in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we're going to be doing actually kind of a introductory seminar called this service is something you are. And so as I was meditating on that, God really began to give me insight about how it's not just applicable to the secular market, that service and the way we render service and the way we perceive service in the kingdom of God has to change. Because most of the time, what we consider as service, we call it a church service, a worship service, and so we use that word. But when you look at what that word actually means and what it is supposed to accomplish in the earth, most of the time what we do in church is far more about entertainment. It's about hearing great speakers. It's about being motivated, because that's what a lot of pastors do. Most church services aren't about service. They're about entertainment. So people go to be entertained, and they go to establish social relationships. If that's what your assignment is, again, that's fine. But I want to talk about something that will actually open portals, open doors, and show you how to move towards the thing that God has assigned for your life. Because service is not something you do. Service is something we are. Now, another definition, and that actually is the motto of the Customer Service Academy. And so as I was working on the presentation for next week, this phrase came to me, this high CR, this definition of service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. Let me say that again. Service is a mindset. It's a way of thinking that activates a lifestyle. And what you will find is that most people who are really good service providers, it doesn't begin and end with what they do at work. It is actually a part of the way they function and operate in the earth. It doesn't matter what your assignment is. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It is a way of looking at life and looking at circumstances. So what we're going to do is I'm going to look at a couple of examples in scriptures and show you how taking on this understanding of service being a mindset that activates a lifestyle is really a portal through. It is a vehicle that God is going to use in these last days to open up the realms of opportunity that he is trying to do for the church, so that we can actually experience the wealth transfer that we've been talking about. So one of the first examples you guys have heard me use quite often, that's the story of Joseph. Now, you may have heard me talk about when Joseph was in the prison. If you look at Joseph's story all throughout, when Joseph was young, even before he was ever sold into slavery by his brothers, Joseph was actually working under the influence of the service mindset when he served his father. His father would actually give him an assignment. He says, look, I need you to go to this place, go check out this field. So his mindset was always one, it was rooted in following through. He had very strong observation skills. He was very committed to his assignment. And so what he would do is when he was given an assignment, he would follow through. He served his father. He did the things that his father needed him to do so that they could activate the provision, the resource, and that so that Jacob it was part of his assignment. It's part of his job. Now, if you fast forward, Joseph took that mindset. He didn't just have that mindset when he served his dad. When he was sold into slavery and landed in Potiphar's house, he took the same mindset and incorporated it in Potiphar's house. And so that he was so consistent, he was so diligent, he was so focused, he was so committed to doing a good job until it opened the door for the more responsibility he got in Potiphar's house, so that eventually it got to where Potiphar didn't worry about anything. Joseph was the overseer, because again, service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. Now, here is the beautiful thing about that lifestyle, is the more committed you become to walking and living in this lifestyle, the more that mindset and lifestyle lifestyle, the more opportunities it will open and create for you. Okay? Because service is not something you do, service is something you are. So really what we're talking about tonight is the service of ministry, and how the service of ministry will be impacted by, will actually shape the way you think. It will change how we focus. It'll change how we look at circumstances. It'll change how we treat people. It'll change how we respond to the people we are charged to work for and to serve. And that if our service standards rises to a certain level, it will open doors of opportunity. And then those doors of opportunity will always lead us to solve problems. And when you solve problems, you activate increase. Okay, so we see, so Joseph ends up in the prison. So now he's been betrayed by Potiphar's wife. He is now in prison, but he doesn't change his service orientation. He doesn't change his mindset. He doesn't change the way he thinks and looks at how he is committed to managing the people he is charged with working for. Okay, so even in the prison situation, Joseph still applies the same mindset to his task. He comes into the prison cell. He encounters the butler and the baker. And while he's there talking to the butler and baker, he is committed. He says, you guys aren't smiling. You guys, there's no joy on your face. What's going on? And they tell him about the dreams. So now, again, Joseph is committed to serving. Service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. So now that lifestyle, that spirit of excellence, that paying attention to the people around you, that looking after the little people when everybody else wants to focus on the big people in the room, looking after the little people, taking, maximizing the people that others will ignore. Okay. So that's what Joseph did. And what happened? When Joseph interpreted their dreams, it didn't happen right away, but a full 2 years later, the butler has the opportunity to tell Pharaoh about what happened to him in prison. So the service orientation that Joseph exercised opened the door, because service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. I'm going to keep saying that, because if we are looking for opportunities and open doors, and we don't carry this way of thinking that service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle, then there will be repeated doors that God is putting in front of us to open, to give you the opportunity to show the mindset, so that the mindset can activate the lifestyle, so that the lifestyle can create and open doors of opportunity, so that open opportunities can now bring or lead you to manifestations of greater levels of increase. That service mindset will open the door for you to actually tap into the wealth that is assigned for our lives. Okay, but that's just one example. Let's look at another one. In 2 Kings 5, you see the story of Naaman, who was a commander in the armies of a king named Aram. Okay, now Naaman was a great man. He was a great warrior, and he was highly respected because God had given many victories to Aram at the hand of Naaman. But Naaman had a problem. He was a leper. Now, one of the things that as Naaman and Aram had come back from Israel, they had taken captives. And there was a young girl who was among the captives from Israel. And she was a servant in Naaman's house. She took care of Naaman's wife. So one day, the servant girl says to her mistress, now this is service orientation. This child looked at her mistress's husband and saw the physical state that he was in. And she desired to see him healed. She desired to see change activated in his life. So what does she do? She says to her mistress, she says, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Now, mind you, she was a slave that had been brought and carried from her nation. But remember, service is not something you do. It's something you are. And service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. Now, once you cultivate the lifestyle of service, what it will do is help you recognize the problems in your midst. The servant girl saw a problem that her master experienced. He was a leper. And so she tells her mistress, there is a solution to his problem. And so she tells her mistress, and her mistress then tells Naaman, and then Naaman sets on this journey. Now, in the beginning, he almost missed his blessing because he thought that the prophet was supposed to come out and do something unique, big, and special. And the prophet told him, "No, you just go down there and dip seven times in that nasty river, and you'll come up whole." And he almost left without his blessing. But then his servant turned around and said, "Look, if the man of God had told you to do some great big feat, would you do it?" Yeah, but he said, all he told you to do is go dip in the river. Why don't you just do what he says so that you can activate the blessing? Now, again, here is another example of a person who is committed to seeing a problem solved. There is a gateway to accessing increasing resource and increasing opportunity. Remember, service is not something you do. It's something you are. Service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. Once you step into that activation and you activate that lifestyle, it trains your eye to look around you for the problems that are in your midst. Okay? Once you establish what the problems are, then your natural inclination is to try and find a solution to the problems around you. That is what the service orientation does. In fact, the same thing that leads people to innovate great resources and inventions, it's the same mindset. It is a service orientation. So service is not something you do. Service is something you are. In addition, service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. Now, once you cultivate the lifestyle of service orientation, it trains you to recognize the problems in your midst. Now, it's really important to not minimize the size of the problem. I'll give you another example of amazing service orientation that opened a door. So we see how the service orientation that Joseph had opened the door for him to be brought before Pharaoh. That's just one. And we see how the servant girl, recognizing Naaman's problem, opened the door. She brought a solution to the problems that were in her midst. Okay, so now that's the next thing. But then here's another example about how powerful this service orientation is. Now let's go to the book of Samuel, where David is now has come back from battle. They get back and they find again where their wives and their children have been kidnapped and their city burned with fire. And so the Amalekites had come through and kidnapped all of their family. And so now David is distraught. His men are distraught. They're so upset till now David has issues too, but his men turn around and they want to kill him. And so David says, you know what? I can't let their mindset impact me. I've got a problem that needs a solution. So David gets with God, encourages himself, and then he finally asks the Lord, Lord, what do I do? And God tells him, yes. He said, David says, God, do I go after this troop? What do I do? And God says, yes, go after them, for surely you shall recover all. Now get this. David didn't know where they were. He didn't know which direction they had gone in. He didn't know what path to take. But David says, okay, we think this is the way. So they set after. Now, along the path, they come upon an Egyptian who was almost dead. Okay, and this is what happens in much culture. We look at certain people and think, oh, they can't help me. But David, in his service orientation, sees the Egyptian who had been left for dead by the people who had just kidnapped David's families. So David's service orientation he saw a problem. So what did he do? He first solved the man's problem. He didn't start questioning the man. He realized the man needs something to drink. The man needs something to eat. They gave him something to drink. Then they fed him. They took care of his needs. Now David, in all honesty, if you just looked at this circumstance, David could have kept riding and left the man for dead. Because he was almost dead. He's almost dead. We got to go get my family. Let me just keep moving. He could have done that, but he didn't. David recognized that the man had a need. There was a problem in front of him. So David took it upon himself to solve the problem that was in front of him, not realizing that the problem of the man's need, the man needed water, he needed food, he was left for dead, he had been sick. And so once they attended to his need, the very door that David needed to get to the next thing opened, because the man knew which direction his wives and his children had been taken when they were kidnapped by the very ones who left him for dead. See, that's what a lot of culture, and that's what I believe a lot of our society has done. When you are service focused, you will always recognize the need that is in front of you. And I think that that's one of the things that most of the church is missing. We're trying to tell people, oh, come to our great church, the church. People don't need to come to your church because you don't recognize what they need. We need to figure, people say all the time, they'll say things like, well, we need to attend to the poor. Let me tell you a thing about poverty. Poverty will never be solved by addressing the issue of poverty. Poverty can only be solved by helping people identify the purpose for which they were placed on this earth. Once you help people identify that purpose and then help them tap into it with sustainable employment and meaningful work that pays them a fair wage for the work that they do and give them an opportunity to open the door so that they can step into that, then poverty issue solves itself. So we can give to the poor all day long. But until the church wakes up and gets our head out of the clouds where we are looking and we're so focused on, the glory. And I'm not saying the glory is not important, but my heart burns for the 4.6 million students between 16 and 24 who aren't in school and aren't working, who are destined that if we don't wake up and do something and create opportunities and help these young people see why they are here and help them understand that you are one of America's last great resources. You, the very people, just like the man that was left on the road for dead by that David rescued, I see myself as a David standing, looking out on the horizon at this young population who needs some direction, who needs some guidance, who needs some focus. And if those of us who are willing will stop and say, what can I do? Then we can solve that problem. Service is not something you do. It is something we are. Service is not something you do on church on Sunday. You don't go to a church service. You don't go to a worship service. Because service in its very nature means that someone who could do nothing back for you, you do something for them. The word service means to pour out on behalf of. Just saying. Service is not something we do. Service is something we are. Service activates a mindset. It is a mindset. It's a way of thinking. It is a way of looking at the problems of our day and allowing the problem to mix with your imagination, your thoughts, your creativity, your insight, your wisdom, your gifts, and allowing God to use you to create a solution. I'll never forget a story that I heard at Women on the Front Line several years, I can't even remember where I heard it, but it was about a young mother who had 2 small children at home, but God had given her a burning heart regarding the issue of sex trafficking. And she was going, God, what can I do? I can't go anywhere. I can't do any missionary trips. I can give offerings, but I've only got so much resource. And in the course of her exploring the problem and yielding to the voice of God, yielding to the voice. And what was the voice? The voice wasn't God saying, you need to do X, Y, Z. No, the voice of God was the burning desire in her heart to change a circumstance and to make a difference in an issue. And she had a burning heart to impact sex trafficking. And so along the course of that, she found a website. And as she was going, she started to go online on this website and literally minister. This was a website that was used to draw in young girls and pull them into a sex trafficking lifestyle. They would bring them in and then they would end up kidnapping them. And so what she did is literally person by person, girl by girl on this website, she went in and started to pray and minister to every girl on that website until the site shut down. Service is a mindset that leads to a lifestyle. It activates a lifestyle. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of looking at the issues and deciding that I am the solution to this. I am the solution to this problem. There is something inside of me that allows me the opportunity to solve this, that allows me the opportunity to explore solutions until I discover the right one. And you don't quit, and you don't give up, and you don't stop, and you keep looking and looking and looking until the answer appears. So again, let me remind you, service is not something you do. It's not something you do on Sunday, going to church on Sunday, singing some worship songs and listening to a pastor preach the same sermon that you didn't do nothing. The sermon he preached last Sunday, you didn't do anything with that. And the sermon he preached the Sunday before that, you didn't do anything with that. And the sermon he preached before that, you didn't do anything with that. And the sermon he preached. So every Sunday we go to church and we get a good word. We go, ooh, girl, boo, didn't he preach? And don't change a freaking thing about who we are and what we do. There is no service, so don't call it a church service, because nobody's being served. People going every Sunday, getting hyped up, getting excited, getting a good word, and go home. And same way we were last Sunday, by Tuesday afternoon, we were right back there. So don't call it Sunday service, because it ain't no service. Because who's being served? Now, I know this is a little harsh, but I'm just looking at the stuff that's going on. One of the other things God really kind of busted me about, I've been working with a union to help unionize so that the employees in my hometown can get fair wages. And what amazes me is that most of the church is just absent. It's just like they don't even show up. It's like they don't even talk about it, don't even discuss it. Whereas if you speak up and you become a voice and you help bring attention to organizations that are not paying people fairly and equitably, and then you either pray about it and intercede about it, you make that. So when your big conference get together and you got 500 people in your conference, then instead of putting somebody on the pulpit to preach yet another sermon that you ain't going to do nothing with, then let's take all 500 of those people in the heat of the conference. Let all 500 of them intercede in that service for an hour. Then maybe we'll get something done. Just saying. Instead of bringing somebody in there. And what we do, we put the stuff that really matters at a time when nobody comes. So you got 10 ladies interceding for a conference of 5,000 people. You got 10, 15 women interceding for this conference at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, crap, forget that. Take the speaker off at 7 o'clock and intercede from 7 to 9. Let all 500 of us get in there and fight in the spirit realm and see if we can't activate that service. What would happen if in a conference like that we got 500 people interceding for the CEO or General Dynamics, praying and fasting? Now, don't do it when nobody's there. Do it when everybody's there. Where you have the multiplied power of all those people. I'm just saying, I know I'm a little wired tonight. I've been wired all day, y'all. I'm sorry. I've been wired all day. I've been trying to be cool and keep it down. But I realize that we have to, yes, Renelle, we have to walk out into the issues. We have to actively explore God's solution. God gives us insight. He is doing it. He is doing it. He is doing it. He is giving us insight. He is showing us strategies. He is showing us techniques. He is showing us ways to do things. And we have to listen. But we're so used to doing everything the same old way. In church, most churches are so boring because nothing is happening. And there's no influence. And so we're doing the same thing. And if we really want to see things change, if we really want to see things break, stop doing the stuff that's not creating any massive change. Look, massive change happens when we change things massively. Now, we know prayer works. We know intercession works. So rather than put intercession at 8 o'clock in the morning when nobody is going to get up in the morning and come, forget that. You want to I'm just waiting to see somebody do it. Put intercession at 7 o'clock from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. when the whole multitude of folks coming, and have some strategic point. You want to pray for the president? Do that. Pray for the president Sunday at 11:15. Not when it's time for the preacher to get up and preach. Instead of preaching another sermon that they ain't going to do nothing with anyway, let's just shut the whole service down and intercede from 11:15 to 12:30. Instead of another sermon, just saying, can't hurt. Can't hurt. Just saying. Anyway. So what have I been talking about tonight? I got to calm myself down. Service is not something we do. Service is something we are. Service is a mindset that activates a lifestyle. The lifestyle is the mental conditioning where we are trained to look for the issues around us. And then we begin to tap into our own creative abilities, partnering with God, and we look for solutions. And yes, the world is waiting for us to bring solutions, and we need to be strategic and effective. And strategy comes through intercession. When I look at most of the times when I have received downloads of how to do things and how to activate things that have been effective and that have worked, it's usually in the times of intercession and connecting with God. Those times of worshiping and partnering with God. And I just see so much wasted time in the typical church. We just have a lot of wasted time where we're being entertained, where it's like, we hear good worship music. Instead of music that activates an atmosphere for the manifest presence of God, we just go and we sing entertainment songs and we get our entertainment and then we go home. And by Tuesday, we need the same deliverance. By Tuesday morning, we need Sunday again because nothing is happening. And so service, my goal is to help the church, or help those, church, to me, church is not a building, church is a people, okay? But my goal is to activate thinking within those individuals who consider themselves to be effective members of the body of Christ, so that we can now begin to change how we look at the opportunity that mass unity has. There is an opportunity there that if we activate it, and we activate it strategically, CR, like you say, if we activate it strategically and we just do some things that the enemy just doesn't expect us to do. He's expecting us to continue doing the same thing the same way. He's expecting us to continue hearing the same sermons. He's expecting us to continue preaching the same messages. He's expecting us to continue doing the same altar call where nobody goes up, and you got a church with 500 people and nobody gets born again. Or you got an altar call and it's the same 22 people getting in line every Sunday, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, wasting time while the world is waiting and all of creation is groaning, waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. And that will begin when we understand what service is. It ain't church service. It ain't worship service. Because until someone is being served, it's just entertainment. It's just entertainment. It's just entertainment. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. Don't forget, if you have not signed up for the renewing the 6 faculties of your mind, go ahead and go online, sign up for that class. It is going to be amazing. It is going to be amazing, because all transformation begins in the realm of thought. Okay, all things are created 4 times. So we'll talk about the 4 realms of creation. Okay, because most of the time we think in terms of thinking, and you know, we look at the things that we should not be thinking about. And the only way you can get rid of the stuff you shouldn't think about is learning to master the ability to creatively focus thoughts in ways that manifest things in front of you. And that's one of the things that I have been working diligently to do better. I've done it well. Yes, Maria, I saw your enrollment. Yes, 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 yes. So those of you who have not enrolled, it's going to be an amazing class. It's going to be a private group. And yes, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. You'll have a workbook. And then we're going to really work on connecting in some ways that make this material interactive so that you can participate with your learning, not just get information, but you'll actually be able to take some exercises. And from one week to the next, you'll go and practice what we do. We're going to do some really powerful techniques about using the mind with intentionality the same way that God does. It's amazing. Gosh, there is so much that we haven't even tapped into. But we can't tap into it tonight because I'm out of time. I want to say thank all of you for joining me this evening. Do me a favor. Go ahead before you log off and share this video and tell somebody who you know needs to be in that class. Tell them they need to sign up. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And until next time, you make it a terrific day. Bye-bye.